Hello and welcome to The Long Play, where we listen to some of the world's greatest albums. It's a little bit like a book. I've stumbled through that. It's a little bit like a book club, but there's no books. Hello, Paul Smith.
Hello, Tom Figgins. You're only 3 sips into your coffee, so...
I know, and it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
Good.
Paul's got a very fancy coffee machine, you see, so I always like coming here because I get a fancy coffee.
Yeah, but maybe Tom needs the full coffee before trying to do the introduction.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
How are you, mate?
I am very good, thanks. I'm aching a bit. We played football last night, didn't we? And yeah, the old bones this morning.
Yeah.
But yeah, all good.
Yeah,
all good.
Yeah, I got
the sun is out.
Dead leg practically as I was walking off the pitch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can feel it this morning. I'm getting to that age now, I think, where just can't just get up and do stuff all the time without worrying about it.
No. But yes, we're here today to talk about Remain in Light by Talking Heads.
Yes, and full disclosure, we've had a tiny bit of a technical issue today, so I'm hoping that between the pod dog biting through whatever he's eating and that it doesn't sound too bad. But we hope we were more excited to bring you our thoughts than waiting another week.
Yeah.
To potentially have to try and record and postpone. So here we are.
And yes, as the pod dog is in the background chewing on a dog chew and making the most of it. So that might be what you can hear. Yeah, so how did you find... You were excited about this album, weren't you, Tom?
I was really excited about it.
Had you listened to it before?
I hadn't listened to the album before, but Talking Heads was a big part of my early musical journey. Through my dad's listening. We had that on cassette, or we had Talking Heads on cassette as part of, I think it was like a sort of a rock compilation, which had all sorts of things like Clapton and stuff on it, and Cream, and I think there was some. Who did that song with Sting? Money for Nothing and Your Chicks for Free? Dire Straits.
Dire Straits. I don't think Sting was on that, was he not? Was he?
Yeah.
Was he? Right. Well, I'm Googling that whilst Tom fills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember watching Stop Making Sense when I was probably about, 7. And it was just... I was just like, wow, what is this?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Money for Nothing, the song features a guest appearance by Sting.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can hear his Geordie accent crooning in the background. I mean, it's quite a light cameo, I guess.
Right. We're not here to talk about Dire Straits or Sting.
Well, or Stop Making Sense. So.
Yeah, although Stop Making Sense does feature the recording of their concert, and it does feature 2 tracks from this album.
Yeah.
It features Once in a Lifetime and Cross-Eyed and Painless.
Yeah, so I listened to it. I listened to it, some of it this morning, and I watched it last night.
Uh-huh.
We're not here to talk about it, but it's so good.
Yeah.
It's such... I think across the whole of all of this is... And I think one of the sort of cruxes of why this album is so good is they've captured the artistry so well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a good representation of what they all were trying to create. And it's, it's not watered down. It's not sort of worried about being pretty.
Yeah.
It's very much, about expression and feeling and energy. I think energy is kind of the word for the whole of this album. Like, it absolutely oozes it.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good entry to sort of see. Like, because when you start listening to Born Under Punches, like, it's a full throttle experience. Like, you don't get much let up. And I think if that was your sort of entry to it, I think you'd be, it takes a bit of time to get into these sort of things. But I think Stop Making Sense is a really marvelous way to sort of ingest that for the first time and sort of see it happening in front of you. And you get to see David Byrne's craziness, for want of a better phrase, in full flow. And you get to see, I think it's interesting as well watching the other band members watch him.
Yeah.
And see see him kind of go off on one. It's quite, it's magic. It was really good. I loved it.
Yeah. So Stop Making Sense, the kind of concert film from Talking Heads, strong recommend. I think, I think relatively recently it was reissued by A24,
A24,
so they've remastered it, and
I think that was probably the one I watched.
Me too. Yeah. So
what did they do to it? Did they made it look pretty, mixed it in Dolby Atmos?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So it's good. It's good. But as we say, that's not that was released as an album, but this Remain in Light remains as probably Talking Heads' most critically acclaimed album of all time.
Produced by Brian Eno.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and there was some controversy. I think there was some friction within the band, and the controversy around the credits for the songs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they agreed that the whole band would be credited alphabetically, and then when it was released, all songs were written by David Byrne and Brian Eno, and the others had been.
Wow, that's a real punchy move.
Yeah, absolutely, and
wow,
and future issues were then credited to the whole band. So
really?
they
won
they won the battle.
Yeah.
But I think both Eno and Byrne are geniuses, but maybe not the easiest people to work with.
Egotists. Maybe.
Yes, yeah. And well, actually, Stop Making Sense has one of the Tom Tom Club songs on it.
Yeah, it was an unusual little sort of moment that,
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of, there's a break sort of in the middle and then there's like, oh, there's this other band just doing a song. And David Byrne's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was unusual.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, I read about the sort of frictions in the band and stuff, but I have to say, one of my favourite things about this record is the bass playing on it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's an absolute masterclass in tasteful playing.
Yeah.
With the ferocity of the percussion on this album, and the high adrenaline drums and percussion. If there was too much bass, it would just be an absolute mess. And Tino Weymouth does such an amazing job of literally staying out of the way and just playing exactly what needs to be done. I mean, Once in a Lifetime, I think, is one of my favourite songs of all time.
Yeah.
Hands down. And she's barely playing anything, and it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It's so good. It does so much to complement the groove and adds sort of punctuation to those moments. Because it's just a dum dum dum. That's all it does. Dum dum. Dum dum. That's like literally all it does the whole way through the song, and she switches between playing at the back of the bar, I think, in the verses, and the front of the bar in the choruses. And that's it. It's genius. It's really great. I love it.
Yeah, it felt like the rhythm section with the star of the. Well, I say the star, and it did feel like that to me. I like the rhythm section, the percussion and the bass of this album. Obviously, David Byrne's style is all over this. His lyrics, his vocals.
I mean, you wouldn't be able to say it sounded like anybody else.
No, absolutely.
I know that I think that's kind of what I mean about the sort of fury and the phonetic energy of it all.
Yeah.
Is that, the percussion and the drums are really sort of the beating heart of the record. I kind of felt like all of the parts were a tiny bit disconnected, but I didn't mind that. I didn't feel like that was a problem.
I think that's a really good point. I felt that as well, that kind of disconnection, but almost in a good way.
Yes.
It's kind of it is a collection of individuals, and it's clearly a collection of individuals, and yet it works. And there's a bit of magic in there because it could easily have not worked.
I think the rhythm section is obviously really together.
Yeah.
I don't think that, but there's a lot of sort of additional parts. And married.
Yeah.
A lot of additional parts, like in the guitars and the synths, that sometimes do feel like they're sort of just almost running in a parallel. I wonder how it was kind of recorded. I mean, in the sort of 70s, multi-track recording was possible.
Yeah.
and they were doing. So there might have been some overdubs and things like that. I wonder how much of it was performed,
Yeah.
together. Probably a lot, like probably a lot of it was sort of constructed
Yeah.
in that way and then overdubbed after, a certain parts. But yeah, I did feel certain times more than others. It really felt like there was a bit of disconnect. But again, yeah, it didn't. Not disconnect sounds like it's a bad word.
Yeah.
And actually, I think for what they were trying to create, I think that's what actually adds to that beating heart of it. I think that's kind of what I'm driving at. Is that the whole of this album? You can feel, the sort of energy coming off
yeah.
and that's really hard to capture.
Uh-huh.
And I think that is why this album has been so, highly regarded through the years.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it starts strong, doesn't it? I love Cross-Eyed and Painless. That may be my favourite track on the album, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Once in a Lifetime's a classic, but
yeah,
really, that kind of energy. I think the opening track, which is
Born Under Punches.
Born Under Punches.
Take
exactly.
a look at these hands.
Yeah. Kind of, it's just a little bit on the edge of. I really like it. There's a great kind of rhythm to it, and but it's all over the place.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily easy listening.
No.
That one.
But I do feel like it does feel like it's classic Talking Heads. Like when you hear it, and maybe that's in Byrne's vocal delivery.
Yeah.
But it does feel very atypical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Atypical does mean
no. Atypical means the opposite.
Where's that coffee?
So yeah, I think Born Under Punches is a great opener.
Yeah,
I think Cross-Eyed and
sets the
Painless
tone.
is the song for me. I really love it.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't in my top ones, actually.
What was in your top ones?
I think, well, obviously Once in a Lifetime, but it's funny that Once in a Lifetime feels the most songy out of all of them.
Yeah. I think I agree with that, but also I think there's a familiarity, isn't there? Of, having had that, with us all our lives.
But again, it's got a lot more edges to that song. Like the chorus is really defined.
Yeah.
It does a lot of helping the listener in the way that, like in music, you have signals as a listener that you hear and you go, oh, cool, we're going into the chorus before you're there, so you're expecting it when it happens.
Yeah.
And I think they do this in Once in a Lifetime, and a lot of the other tracks they don't really. It's more of a.
I guess there's a reason why that was a hit. Because it's
what a hit it was.
Structured. It's not structured classically, but it is structured like a hit in a more ways.
It's got all of the sort of fundamentals which would make it.
A
song.
Yeah.
But the Great Curve I really liked. I think that was for me the one which I kind of walked away and went, right, okay, if this wasn't on Once in a Lifetime wasn't on this record, which would be the thing that I'd be kind of hanging my hat on and going like, okay, cool, I'm really shooting for that. And I think it would be that. And Houses in Motion as well.
I was just about to say Houses in Motion. It's a very kind of simple song in it, but I just love the hook on it, and it just I can't get it out of my head once it's in. Yeah,
I've got that classic, which quite often happens when we're recording, which is when you start talking about names of the songs and you go, oh, which one was that again? Because I'm very rarely looking at something which is telling me what the name of the track is. And I know what they all are, but it's just when we're recording, it all goes a bit, they all start sort of merging into one.
Yeah.
But
we've mentioned, out of 8 tracks, we've mentioned the first 5 in the
It does feel like
songs.
an album of 2 halves.
Yeah.
The second half is a lot more brooding, a lot darker. It does take a bit more of a sort of experimental turn. It feels like more of a Brian Eno touched record. The second half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Seen and Be Seen. Is that what it's called? Yeah. Seen and Not Seen. That's what I was looking for.
I'll get the vinyl.
Yeah, Seen and Not Seen is very experimental, and that kind of spoken word and David Byrne's lyrics about trying to change how you look. Change how you look by just thinking, to try and change your look. That's his kind of very kind of weird, very kind of experimental. And then Listening Wind, I like, it's a nice one, but it's definitely hasn't got the Afrobeat feel of the first half. There's a kind of more traditional, and then the Overload. I mean,
I think that's the one that I was really sort of referring to when I was talking about the sort of second, the slightly more sort of.
Well, I mean, the story of the Overload is that the band had read about Joy Division and decided to write a Joy Division song without actually ever listening to Joy Division, and it sounds just like Joy Division. I don't even believe that story. That is the story that's told, but it sounds so Joy Division that I can't believe that none of them had ever heard a Joy Division track.
Yeah,
because it feels almost like a cover of a Joy Division track.
So on here, to go back to our previous point about who wrote what, it says all songs by David Byrne, Brian Eno, and then Talking Heads, so they don't get name checked.
Yeah, it was
bastards.
Apparently, it was agreed that they would all be named in alphabetical order. And actually, when it first came out, the and Talking Heads bit wasn't in the original release either.
Yeah, it's a bit cheeky.
Yeah, a bit cheeky. I'm not sure they thought it was cheeky. I thought it was downright.
Yeah.
It
came out on
Ireland. So yes, I think the album does change tone in the kind of second half and quietens down a bit. I think. There's definitely a party going on in the first half, and maybe it's the next day for the second half.
I didn't really do much in the way of kind of like looking at the lyrics, and I don't feel like I kind of walked away with a sort of a story for each song. Like I didn't have some sort of grand takeaway from each of them. I mean, even Once in a Lifetime, which I've listened to hundreds of times, I don't think I kind of really know what any of it's about. It's all a bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was suffering from writer's block, wasn't he, David Byrne, in the run-up to this album, and he used a kind of techniques of just cut up lyrics and throwing stuff together.
The old Bowie style.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian Eno's probably had a lot of influence there.
And I think that comes through. I think if I've got a criticism of it, it doesn't feel that emotionally connecting. Yeah, there's an art to it, and there's a rhythm to it, and there's a kind of danceability to it. But from a kind of, that. I think maybe it does come back to those lyrics. They're quite arty and not kind of emotional.
Yeah, and I
that's
guess
David Byrne's style, I think.
Yeah, and you wonder with the sort of the breakneck kind of style of it all, whether that would really connect anyway.
Yeah.
Or if these songs would even have been made if that was what they were chasing. So, there's a reason for everything, isn't there? There's a reason why it kind of turned out like this.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of thankful that it did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kept on thinking, maybe I should be looking at the lyrics. And actually, again, there was a reason why I didn't.
Yeah.
And I think because I was kind of happy it just kind of being a bit more unexpected, a bit more unknown. And I was kind of, happy with that. Shall we talk about what happened in 1980?
Oh, yeah, let's do that. You've done some prep.
Yes. John Lennon was killed.
Oh, I remember. So I think just started secondary school. So I was 11 in 1980. And I remember being in class when I was told about it.
Really?
Yeah, I clearly remember that.
Who were you told by? Teacher?
I don't know. I think it must have been another pupil. I remember the classroom, but I don't remember.
Yeah, so I wonder, because obviously news was a lot slower back then. I wonder how, I wonder if that was the day or maybe the day after.
It might not have been. Yeah.
Not like now.
Yeah.
Pac-Man was released.
Oh, great.
And Stanley Kubrick released The Shining. Or maybe he didn't, but he'd obviously directed it.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
You
seen The Shining before?
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it's
It's a classic.
It's good.
It's a bit like, Remain in Light is something that you should have in your back catalogue.
I remember being told by my English teacher at school saying, I can't tell you to watch this, but I'm just going to leave it here.
Excellent teaching.
I think she said, actually, we were studying the opening shots for some reason. I think we were talking about sort of artistry. I can't remember why. But anyway, so we all met up to watch it when we were like, sort of, I don't know, 16, 17. Wow.
Yeah.
it's pretty full on. And then in music, REM did their first performance as REM. I think they'd been gigging under a different name for a little while. The Cure released Boys Don't Cry.
Yeah.
And AC/DC released Back in Black.
Well, as per the mid-month missive, that was being recorded in the studio next door to Remain in Light.
No way. That would have been, well, it would have been a funny coincidence if that had been the album which had won the poll.
Yes, yeah, and it still amazes me. AC/DC's Back in Black, second biggest selling album of all time.
Really?
Yeah, just behind Thriller. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and
good for them.
Yes, yeah. So they were recording next door, as was I think Robert Palmer was recording in the same studios as well, and he gets a percussion credit on this album. Yeah,
I loved that.
He wasn't
song.
recording "Addicted to Love." Obviously, that was a bit later. I think it was 85. But yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, and in fact,
You said, I think, and then you just. I think it was 85.
85. I think it was August 85. Maybe the 16th. No, I don't know.
I love that song though.
Actually, Robert Palmer's cropped up a bit because the BBC had an Elkie Brooks kind of retrospective this weekend. And my dad loves Elkie Brooks, so we were just kind of watching that. And he and Elkie Brooks were in a band together called Vinegar Joe in the late 60s. And some good clips on that of Robert Palmer.
And then to sort of precursor our little quiz that we have, the football quiz, Prince released an album in 1980. Can you tell me which one it was?
So 1980. For You? Or Prince?
Afraid not.
So it must have been his third album then, maybe Controversy?
What? Dirty Mind.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's okay.
Is that earlier or later than you?
Oh, maybe he went. So the albums in sequence were For You, Prince. Maybe it was Dirty Mind, then Controversy. I can't remember which way round those two were. Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, sorry. You failed.
Failed.
Okay, who won?
In 1980, age 11, I wasn't listening to Dirty Mind.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think, was it Dirty Mind that was the album that prompted? No, it was Purple Rain actually, but the parental advisory.
Oh yes,
that was Purple Rain.
Was it?
It was Tipper Gore, I think, was the advocate for that. But yes, I wasn't listening to the rather rude Dirty Mind in 1980. Probably only took me a couple of years to get around to it, but yeah.
Well, so who won the First Division?
Liverpool.
Correct.
Yeah.
Who won the FA Cup?
Oh.
I'll give you a clue. They weren't in the First Division.
Sunderland? No.
No,
that was much earlier. Southampton?
No.
Who was it?
West Ham.
Right.
And then for your bonus...
Maybe Trevor Booking scored the winner.
Well, yeah. I haven't done that much research. And then for a bonus point, who won the European Cup?
Was that Forest?
It was.
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's what happened in 1980.
Hooray! So yeah, I was thinking about... I've obviously been thinking about this album a lot. I absolutely love it. And, it's right up there. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 for me, though. I think there's a few things within it that I just... I think it does tail off. I think it's full of ideas, but some of those ideas maybe... I said half-formed, but maybe they're just ahead of their time. And the obvious one is like the rap in... I think it's Cross-Eyed and Painless. It's not a great rap. It's really amazing to have that at that time in 1980 in a kind of, that band. Great, but it's not, they're pushing at the edges of the kind of avant-garde in lots of ways.
Yeah.
And there's better stuff to come. Or if you want Afro beats, actually, Fela Kuti and other, there's other kind of Afro beats as well. And certainly if you want a Joy Division song, listen to Joy Division. Don't listen to the Overlord.
And actually on that point, so many genres have been attributed to Talking Heads. And I think it's art pop.
Yeah.
For me, it's art pop.
Yeah.
I don't think it's anything else. It's
Yeah.
It's very art house.
Yes.
And it's, it's very much pushing at the edges of what is sort of considered, down the line.
I think you're right. Yeah. And at times it's a bit too arty for me. Yeah.
I think the second half it isn't, I think if they'd done another 3 songs of sort of, there's the same as the sort of the beginning, really up tempo. I don't think I would have minded. I think they've obviously chosen to have a bit more of a sort of reflective kind of journey in the second half of the record. But I mean, again, who am I to say? Like, it's been well regarded for a reason,
and rightly so. So. I absolutely love it. I just feel like for me, it's not. And actually, I was thinking about Radiohead and Kid A. And actually, Radiohead are named after Talking Heads lyric, and this heavily influenced Radiohead.
Yeah.
And I think Kid A is a similar sort of album in some ways in terms of its kind of artfulness and Tom York's lyrics and yet I think for me, Kid A is right up there for me, and this isn't quite as good for me.
I think I'm in the same sort of boat. Like, it's not a 10 for me either, but I don't think that's because. But then, I mean, to say that, but it wasn't necessarily Remain in Light. But this morning, I had just spinning some, it was just all of their catalogue on shuffle.
Yeah.
I've just been dancing around the kitchen all morning.
Well, actually, that was something that I felt as well. Was I'm not sure what this album is. I'm not sure, it seems a bit arty. And then I watched Stop Making Sense, and you look at the time that the crowd are having and the kind of party atmosphere and the dance. I was like, actually, I get it now. Yeah. There is something more than just art to it. There is something more visceral.
Yeah.
And I think it was Stop Making Sense that unlocked that for me.
And I think that's why I was saying it's a good entry. It's a good entry to kind of understanding more about it, because I think seeing them do it.
Yeah.
Is a lot of the sort of not missing pieces, a bit reductive, but you know what I mean. But so I mean, but it's maybe a 9. I think it's probably a 9. I think it's visceral is a really good word to describe it. It's very felt and it's very well captured. I think it's more of a celebration of kind of what it's putting out there than necessarily the songs themselves.
Yeah.
I think the way that it makes you feel is very, very real, and I think that's not always well transferred in music, unless it's something that's incredibly painful or something like that. Like that's quite an easy emotion to feel from music. I find. But feeling like joy and excitement and energy and. I think that's maybe joy and excitement isn't the right word, but energy. Energy is really the kind of is the thing. Yeah. Like you can feel something happening on the other side of the speakers, and it's almost like the band is there doing it.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Great.
It's
great.
Yeah, it's very real. So I give it a 9.
Well, I gave it an 8. Yeah, and I think for me, it's probably a point off for the kind of the back end of the album.
Yeah.
And then maybe a point off for just being me not connecting quite as much, particularly with the lyrics and just, but what a great album. I absolutely loved it. And I'm so delighted to have had, a month of listening to it.
And I'm so pleased as well that now, I've got Talking Heads back on my, in not just this album, but a lot of it in my periphery. And I mean, if you maybe you've come to this, sort of junction of the podcast and you haven't listened to this album. If you haven't and you've never heard of Talking Heads, I'd really recommend watching Stop Making Sense, because it's a real remarkable piece of work. It's only an hour and a half long.
Yeah.
I challenge you not to be sort of dancing around your kitchen.
Absolutely. Great.
Well, As always, thank you very much for joining us here. You can find us on all the good places.
Oh, all the places. Instagram.
Yes, the Long Play Pod.
Yeah, and subscribe to us on Substack, where every month we send out the mid-month missive, which has links and reviews and background information to the album of the month. And we also send out an email at the start of the month called The Revolution, where we just talk about the release of this podcast and the transfer to the next album for that month.
So what's happening next month, Paul?
Well, next month we are listening to the 4th album by Led Zeppelin. We're going to call it Led Zeppelin 4. It wasn't officially called Led Zeppelin 4. It's just untitled, but that's what we're going with because that seems to be the common vernacular for that 4th album. But yeah, a bit of rock. We had a rock poll.
Yeah, it was sort of pushed by me. I was quite interested in having a bit of rock music.
And
I was really rooting for AC/DC, but I don't... Oh, no, I did vote.
Yeah. I don't think I voted, but I was very happy to see Led Zeppelin on there. Yeah. We'll be releasing the intro episode imminently, so stay tuned for that. But that'll be what we're listening to next month, Led Zeppelin 4. And subscribe to us on Substack. You can find us at thelongplaypod.substack.com.
Great. And if you'd be so kind, leave us a little review wherever you're listening to us. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever, please do leave us a review. That
would be great.
It does amazing help for the old algorithm that we're always trying to fight against. And yes, and tell someone about us. Tell someone to come and join us on this magical mystery tour of music.
Yes, and we'll see you next month. But in the meantime, there's only one thing to say.
No skipping.
No shuffling.